Sometimes it just takes one single dramatic event, like a flash of lightning, to reveal all the deep, complex problems that have been brewing just beneath the surface. For the UK, that event was, well, a storm.
So on the surface, the crisis is right there in your face. Storm Bram slams into the UK and it brings chaos. We're talking British Airways grounding flights, railways like the Great Western shutting down lines because of flooding, and thousands of homes losing power. It's a classic case of our infrastructure buckling under the pressure of some really severe weather.
But here's the thing. What if this isn't just about bad weather? What if this literal storm is just the most visible part of a much, much bigger story? What if it's actually the perfect metaphor for a whole series of interconnected, systemic storms that are all hitting the nation at the exact same time?
Okay, so let's start with the economy, where a different kind of storm is gathering. It's a storm of deep pessimism. And this isn't just about headline inflation numbers. It's about how people are actually feeling, and more importantly, how they're spending their money.
Take a look at this number, -19. That's the GfK Consumer Confidence Score for November 2025. And a score like that, it sends a crystal clear signal. There is a profound lack of confidence in the economy. People are worried, and that worry has very real consequences.
And here is that consequence in action. Household spending dropped by 1.1% year on year. Now that's the fastest fall we've seen since the lockdowns back in February 2021. So people aren't just saying they're pessimistic, they're actively pulling back, closing their wallets, even on the essentials. And you can feel this economic anxiety in your everyday life, right? Through things like shrinkflation. You know that feeling when your favorite chocolate bar seems just a little bit smaller, but it costs exactly the same? Well, it's not just a feeling. A staggering 7 in 10 consumers have noticed it, which basically makes it a hidden tax on family budgets. And look, this sustained economic pressure, it takes a massive human toll. As all those financial worries start to mount, so do mental health challenges. This chart right here reveals a clear upward trend in the prevalence of anxiety and depression in England. It's a silent internal storm that's affecting millions of people.
All right, now let's shift gears to the political landscape and see how this builds into another kind of storm. Because here we find a fundamental paradox right at the heart of government policy, a massive clash between the rules it has set for itself and what the country desperately needs. This visual captures the paradox perfectly. On one side, you have the government's super rigid fiscal rule: debt must be falling within 5 years, period. But on the other side, you have the stark reality: a £90 billion investment is needed just to upgrade the energy grid. You simply can't have both. You can't slash debt in the short term while also making the massive investments we need for the future.
And this quote from the New Economics Foundation really gets to the heart of it. These rules aren't unchangeable laws of physics. They are deliberate policy decisions. So the debate isn't really about whether we can afford to invest, but whether our political framework is even going to allow us to.
And this political gridlock has major real-world consequences. We're talking about over 800 gigawatts of clean energy projects that are just stuck, waiting to get connected to the grid. The whole system creates this lopsided risk. Developers can lose millions from delays, while the network operators causing those delays, they face almost no penalties. It's a system that basically rewards sitting still, not taking action. This pattern of strain just keeps on going in our public services. The NHS is facing its own perfect storm, a tidal wave of demand coming from the outside and a crisis of failure happening on the inside.
First, let's talk about that outside pressure. Hospital admissions for the flu are a shocking 56% higher than last year. Health leaders are warning of an unprecedented tidal wave of illness that's hitting the system early and hitting it hard. Now, at the exact same moment the system is under maximum strain, we learn this. The very organization that's responsible for ensuring quality and safety, the Care Quality Commission, is itself broken. A report found significant internal failings, which means it's actually losing its ability to spot poor care. So the NHS is facing a crisis, and its own watchdog can't see properly. So, amid all of these compounding crises, a potential solution is emerging: technology. Artificial intelligence is being deployed to try and solve some of these deep, systemic problems. But, as we're about to see, it brings its own set of challenges to the table. In mental health, for instance, where demand is just soaring,
AI chatbots are already making a real difference. Tools like Limbic Access are streamlining referrals in the NHS, helping people access therapy faster, and offering a less intimidating first step for those who might struggle with making a phone call. It's a targeted, practical fix for a totally overwhelmed system.
But this brings us to a deep paradox. While 6 in 10 of us have used an AI chatbot, a huge majority, 7 in 10, admit to knowing little or nothing about how it actually works. This massive gap between usage and understanding is creating a whole new kind of societal anxiety around things like misinformation and data security.
So what do you even call it when you have an economic crisis of confidence, a political crisis of paralysis, and a public health crisis of capacity all interacting with and worsening each other? Well, there's a name for it, a polycrisis. It's when the whole situation becomes far more dangerous than the sum of its parts.
And all of this brings us to the final crucial question. Storm Bram will pass, the rain will stop, but those underlying storms in our economy, our government, and our public services, they're going to remain. So in a world that's defined by these connected crises, the challenge isn't just about fixing one problem. It's about designing an entire system that is resilient enough to handle all of them at once.